Hello everyone, welcome back once again. Today I'm going to cover EIGRP. EIGRP is actually a routing protocol, okay? And this is basically an alternate option for other routing protocols like RIP, OSPF, and some more we are having like ISIS. So this is just an alternate for this, and the full form of this EIGRP is Enhanced Interior Gateway Routing Protocol. Okay, so here E stands for Enhanced Interior Gateway Routing Protocol. So that's how it is. Okay, and in this session we are going to cover introduction to EIGRP. Right, the first I'm going to cover introduction, that I will tell you that what basically it is EIGRP. Timers, what are the different timers like hello timers, hold down timers, and others, and what algorithm is it going to use for the calculation of the different paths. Then after that one we will discuss like a packet type or message type. What are the different packet types there? They are basically used to build the topology. So this is a very important part, messages, because that's how we know about the behavior of our routing protocol. And then I will explain you some different terminologies of EIGRP. Obviously, whenever we are having some other routing protocol, so we specifically use some terms for that routing protocol only. So we'll discuss about some of the new words for about the EIGRP. And then after that, as usual, I'm going to take a lab session. I will show you the configuration, that how actually we are going to configure in the routers that EIGRP, and how actually it helps to build the routing table and topology. Okay. The first thing that is very important, that the administrative distance for this EIGRP is 90, right? And if you talk about the OSPF and others, so that is the higher for the OSPF, and we are having the RIP as well, right? So there are some other AD values and they are higher than the EIGRP. Like OSPF, we are having RIP or ISIS, and let me put in the sequence. ISIS and OSPF are similar because they are both using the link state vectors, and RIP is using the distance routing vector. So the AD value of EIGRP is 90, and that is the lowest. Because of that, it makes EIGRP the most credible, or the credibility of EIGRP is very high whenever we are running the different routing protocols. Or let's suppose, for example, you are running all of them, OSPF, ISIS, and RIP, and you are also running the EIGRP, then the routes learned from the EIGRP are the preferred one, right? It's like uh, let's suppose you are using the Google Maps, and for the Google Maps you have four options to reach your destination. This is the one way. Another one is like this one. Another is like this one, and another might be something different like that one. So this is the four routes, and they might be the different, like for example, they are from the different routing protocols. I think three is missing. Let's say this is three. So whenever we are having the four routes, and so whatever routes has been suggested by the EIGRP, let's suppose this is the suggested by the EIGRP, that might not be direct, but is still we always take that's a reliable path to reach the destination. We think that this is will not be broken somewhere in between that, because you might have observed in the Google Maps that you are traveling in your path, and after reaching some of the points you see that that road is closed, or this construction is going on, or something like that happens, right? So that may create a problem in your path, and so that's how we are having the four paths, but still we are always using the EIGRP as the best one, or we prefer the routes learned from the EIGRP. So you might be thinking that EIGRP is not so popular. You might be seeing that whenever it comes to the routing protocols, we maximum see the OSPF, or it is the case of our ISPs, then they use ISIS. You rarely have seen the EIGRP configured in your network or any of the networks. So the basic reason for that is it was a Cisco proprietary. Mind my words, it was Cisco proprietary, right? It was means that right now it is not Cisco proprietary, and they made it open standard. So it was made open standard in 2013. Before that, what it was Cisco proprietary, and no other vendors or companies were using the EIGRP. So as they have made it to open standard and anyone can use it, but still most of the operators do not prefer to go to EIGRP. So you might be observing that some other companies, they are still not supporting EIGRP. They just stick to the OSPF, RIP or ISIS. They don't have an option for the EIGRP. You cannot configure them with EIGRP. So that was the major reason that the companies have not adopted the EIGRP. Once it comes to the Cisco, then obviously we are having all the options, and you can use. Uh, in short, I can say that Cisco was, father or mother of the, or in fact, the parents of the networking. So most of the things come first in the Cisco, and then other companies follow them. Most of the time it happens, or whatever is developed by the Cisco, and then it comes to the standardization body, and then they made an open standard, or they follow the same pattern whatever the leader company is doing. So that's what it is happening. This is a normal trend. This is nothing learning, but that's what the normal behavior of the peoples, and they follow it. So for the communication purpose, EIGRP using the two of the methods, they use unicast as well as the multicast. If someone is asking in interviews that what is the mode of communication in the EIGRP, so it is they may ask you that your EIGRP uses unicast or multicast, and then you can suggest you can say that it is using both unicast and multicast. So unicast is always obviously one to one. It will be using the specific IP address or the router ID, whatever has been configured on the routers. But when it comes to the multicast, then it is using this specific IP for the multicast 224.0.0.10. So there are specific multicast IPs for the OSPF and for the RIP as well. So like for example, let me tell you that RIP is using that 224.0.0.0.9, and OSPF is using two multicast IPs, that is the 224.0.0.5 and 0.0.6. So it is the thing, and why I'm telling you right now, because if you learned with the comparison, you learn it very fast. If I tell you about only the multicast IP of the EIGRP, you might forget it. But when you are, comparing with the other routing protocols like RIP and OSPF, you keep in mind that 5 and 6 for the OSPF, RIP is having .9, and multicast IP is .10. Either you don't configure anything, any multicast IP in the routers while configuring EIGRP, but this is just for information, and uh, for the interview point of view, that sometimes they ask you. That's it. That's just for information only, nothing else. So EIGRP uses the same Dijkstra's algorithm that is used by the OSPF, and that is also known as the SPF. SPF is known as the shortest path first. So that's what algorithm it is using, and this is just a combination of the distance vector as well as the link state, right? We are having the two things, distance vector or the link state vector. Distance vector or the link state. There are two things for the finding the best path in the network. So either you have to rely on the distance, that how many hop the destination is away, or another thing, link state is like that we are looking for the alternate options, like delay in the link or the capacity of the link, that what is the cost of that link. Obviously cost and bandwidth are quite related with each other, so we take care of these things in our uh, calculation of the best path. So rep is let me change the color. I think there's a lot of red here, right? So if I can change it, or yeah, now I get it. So RIP is using the distance vector, and OSPF and ISIS, they are using the link state vector. When it comes to the EIGRP is also termed as the hybrid. Why we call it as a hybrid? Because it uses both of them. It uses the distance vector as well as the link state vector for the calculation of the best path. Another and very important part is like that it supports the unequal load balancing. No other routing protocol supports unequal load balancing. They support load balancing, but equal. It's like you are having, let me clear it if I can clear it or not. Erase all the inks. Yeah, it's a. So let me just take one example here. There you are having the different routers, right? R1, R2, R3, right? And let's say we are having R4 router R4 here. That's also connected like that one. And let's say here we are having the 5 routers in the between, or just 2, R6. Fine. So we are having the 3 paths to reach the destination from R1 to R3. So sometimes it happens like it is relying on the hop counts or some combinations or like that one, that it uses the 2 best path. They say that the cost of the links or because of the certain conditions, it is traveling that this is the best path as well as this is also the best path. All metric and the cost and whatever the values we are seeing for the best path, they are same for this link as well as for this link. So in that case, what is happening that 50% traffic is going from this path and the remaining 50% is going from the other path. You cannot like distribute it that 20% is going from this and 80% is going from this. You cannot do that one in other routing protocols. While you can do this thing 20% on this link and 80% going on some other link, you can do via EIGRP. That is possible via EIGRP. We use some K values in that one, although I'm not uh, going to tell you that how K values is configured, because that is a concept of CCNP, right? That is a quite advanced level. So here we are just covering a CCNA only. So, but still, if you are curious about that one, you can search on Google's and or not Google. In fact, you can go to the Cisco website and they will give you the configuration. And it is always a good idea. Whatever I'm teaching you, you just go through the different Cisco websites, not Cisco, Cisco websites. So you just learn the things better way. They explain, because some of the times, I do not explain 100%. They are the vendor and they just documented all the things. So even I skip a small thing, they tell you those things as well. So that's how it is quite useful. The EIGRP, it supports the unequal load balancing as well. Okay, let's go further. So there are just 2 timers in the EIGRP. The first timer is like a hello timer, that is by default is 5 seconds. Obviously we are having an option to change it, and we can change as per the requirement or whatever we want, but these are the standard or the default timers. So hello timer is basically like whenever we are having the EIGRP configured in the 2 routers, they just keep on sending the hello packets, that they want to know that whether the other router is still connected with me or it has dropped, or there's some problem in the link, or router gone failure or power failure, whatever the causes it is having to know the status of the other router. They keep on sending the hello packets. So the default interval is 5 seconds. They keep on sending the hello packets after every 5 seconds, and the hold down timer is 15 seconds. So obviously whenever it is sending the hello timer, it will get some reply back that okay, yes, I'm still connected with you, correct? So what it does actually, that they wait for 15 seconds. They wait for 15 seconds. If they do not get any reply within 15 seconds from the other router, they set it as a dead and they remove it from the routing tables. They think that the router think that the router 2 is not connected anymore. So whatever the routes has learned from the router 2, or it thinks that some other connectivity we are having via router 2, that will be removed from the routing tables. And if it is having some alternate path, it will choose that path to reach that destination. That earlier it might be connected like that one. We are having two routes to reach the destination, like this one and this one. But now that R2, it will declare that R2 has lost, so it will remove this route from the routing table, and that only path exists is this one. All the packets coming to the destination will be going through this path only. So hold down timer is like how much time it can wait to respond from the other routers. So that is the hold down timer. So these are the very much asked questions in the interviews, that what is the default values for the hello timers and hold down timers. And they sometimes also ask that what actually they are, right? Okay, so let's have a look some of the message types in the EIGRP. Message types means that we just seen that, right? It is sending the hello packets. So hello packets is like the first hello packet is for the purpose of neighbor discovery. Obviously, whenever we are having the two routers and we just configure the EIGRP in both of them, then first one of the router will initiate the traffic that I want to know about you. So that's also a hello timer, right? So the purpose of that hello is neighbor discovery. The first packet is hello packet, or the message, that hello message. Another one, I think I should say that the second one is like a update. So once let's say that hello packet has been shared with each other, this is replying to this is replying to that, and then they are neighbors, and they are sharing the routing tables with each other. So once any of the route goes down, or some topology changes are happening, so what is going to happen, that this router, let's say this is router 2 and this is router 1, so router 2 is going to update router 1 about the information that one of my route has gone down. There is some problem in the link or some anything, right? Any routing updates, so those updates are being sent via the update messages. So it is saying that to propagate AIGRP routing updates. So this is multicast as well as the unicast. Okay, and reliable, unreliable, just forget it. If you want to memorize it, you can memorize it, as if that they are not of much concern as of now. Okay, another message type is like a query message. So query message is like whenever the just forget about this language what is written here, right? It might be confusing. You will understand after this session, but as of now in this stage you might be confused about that what is this feasible successor or successor, right? So just wait, hold on for a second, because I'm going to tell you in this session later on. But meanwhile, let's try to understand like this one. Let's suppose you are having two routers, R1, R2, they are connected like that, right? And they are also connected like that one, right? And so what is saying that whenever the route does not have best path, let me say like this, we are connected to like this one, R3 and R4, okay, or let's me have only two only. Let's remove this third one, okay, just two will suffice our example. So let us suppose we are having the best path. Obviously, we are having the best path from R1 to R2, which is directly connected, right? This is the best path, right? Anyhow, because of some reason, this link is down. Okay, this link is down means the best path is not available. So obviously, the traffic will be traveling through the alternate best path, whatever is the alternate path. So whatever is the best path, let me tell you right now, the best path, which is that is always called as the successor in terms of the EIGRP. I'm going to, I was having planned to explain you in the later slides, but let me explain it right now. So that is just one thing. So why to wait for the some time. So whatever the best path is there, right? Whenever we are having the routing topology and whatever the best path is known as a successor in terms of or the in the language of the EIGRP. And whatever is the alternate best path, the second best path, that is known as the feasible successor. Feasible successor. So the best path is successor and the alternate or the secondary path that is known as the feasible successor. Okay. So whenever the successor is down, means that obviously the main path is down, and by chance what happens that our feasible successor is also down, right? The best path was broken, so the traffic was traveling through the alternate best path, that is through feasible successor, but because of some reason what happened that it is also down. So whenever it happens like that one, what happens that for this finding out the any other route that does any of the router is having any path to reach the destination, it generates a query message. It's like a query that do you have any other path to reach the destination? So that is generated the query message that when the router does not have the feasible successor for a destination prefix, it sends a query packet to its neighbors asking if they have successor to the destination. Correct? So that's how it is. It means like when we don't have any path, means any of the router does not find any path to reach the destination, it tries to generate a query message to all the neighboring routers that, hey guys, do you have any other possibility or some information to reach the destination or not? Right. So once they have let's suppose our router 1 has requested that or generated that query message to some other router which was connected like R6. So R6 will reply it back, right? So R6 will reply to back, no, don't have, or it if it is having, then it will say yes, I have. So the reply to that query message is like a reply message. So this is the reply packet is sent response in the query packet. When the query is generated via R1, R6 will reply, or whatever the some other routers who is having some information or they are not having the information, they just reply to the query message. Okay. And sometimes it happens that they keep on searching that do I have or not, so they just sometimes delayed replying that reply packet. So that also happens in the real scenarios. And another is the last one is like acknowledgement, used to acknowledge the receipt of the update query and reply message. So this is also in terms of the hello packets, that whenever we are sending a hello packet, it acknowledges it back, yes, I am alive, right? If it's sending a keep alive message, so hi, are you alive? He says acknowledge it back, yes, I'm alive. So that's a type of acknowledgement. Or whenever it is sending an update message that there is some topology changes and it replies it back, okay, yes, I got whatever you just replied to me. So this is happening in case of receipt of update, query, and the reply messages. So in the response of these three messages, we are sending the acknowledgement. Okay, and yeah, acknowledgement packets do not require acknowledgement. Acknowledgement or Unicast hello. Yeah, they are just always genius. They are saying that ACK packets do not require an acknowledgement. Obviously, this is an acknowledgement, right? It's like uh, you are sending a WhatsApp message and you seen that the double ticks has gone blue. So now if you have gone blue, then that does other party needs to know that my double ticks has gone blue. Like this is an acknowledgement that some other person has read it, so we don't not need an acknowledgement once again that his ticks has gone blue. It's like an acknowledgement of an acknowledgement, so obviously that's not happening in the real or anywhere. So that's not going to happen anywhere. They just explain it a very better way. So here I was planning to explain you these successor and feasible successor, but you already know it. So you're smart enough. And there are two more terms like a feasible distance or the advertised distance or reported distance, right? So feasible distance is another part, and advertised distance or the reported distance means advertised distance and reported distance both are the same things, while the feasible distance is something else. So let's try to understand that what actually they are, what is the feasible distance and what is this AD and RD value. So for that one, I have just copied one of the image from the internet. I don't know from where, I forgot it. And the same image I have copied from this image as well. That was I was searching somewhere and I find it, and then also I copied it from the internet somewhere. I don't know from where I have copied it, but I did it. So let's try to understand the feasible distance first. Okay, so let's suppose we are having a scenario. Let me change the color because the red and green are already here. So let me put it blue this time. Okay, so let's suppose we are having the topology like that one. We are having this router, let's say the router A. Okay, we are having the some network X where we have to reach it. We are having the routers R1, R2, R3, and R4, and the cost of the link are the 15 here. Here it is 5. This is 7 and 15. So these are the cost of link, and they are quite obvious. We used to have it everywhere whenever we are having some bandwidth. So based on the bandwidth, either like 10 Mbps, 100 Mbps, or 50 Mbps, whatever the link bandwidth it is, based on that one, we used to assign the cost. Not assign, in fact, that is calculated by default. There's a formula to calculate cost from its bandwidth, right? You might be aware because if you might have listening my videos, obviously you might be expert in that one, that how cost and bandwidth are correlated with each other. So now what is going to happen? We have to reach the destination, that is a network X from the router A, right? So the total cost to the network X is the feasible distance, right? So we are having the four routes. We are having the four routes to, not four, in fact, three. We are having the three routes, either via R1, either via R2, or via R3. So if I try to reach network X from A via router 1, then let's calculate the total cost we are having. So total cost is 15 plus 5 plus 5, that is 25, right? So that's why they are saying the FD through R1 is 25. 25, why? Because we have to add the total cost to the destination. So 15 plus 5 plus 5. We can also say like this one. This is 15 plus 5 plus 5, right? So same thing. If we go via R2, what will be the feasible distance? 7 plus 5, 15 plus 5. It means that 15 plus 5, 20, and plus 7, that is 27. Perfect. What about the feasible distance through R3? Like this one, 25 plus 5, that is 30, and plus 8, that is 38. So that's what it is going. So now what is going to happen? That whatever is having the lowest FD, that will be our best path. That is a successor. So that's why it is saying it here, R1 is the successor to X, correct? Obviously, whatever is having the lowest FD, that will be the successor, or we can say the best path to reach the destination. Another thing is like, what is the alternate best path? No, not alternate best path. We are discussing the AD value. What about the advertised distance? So advertised distance is always from the next hop. Next hop means that we are calculated from the A, right? So what is the next router? Next router is always R1, R2, and R3. So they are the advertised distance from the nearest router, or we can say the one hop away from the main router. So our main router, or the point of focus, is our router A, and the next hop is router 1. So we will always calculate the total distance from this to the destination. It means that 5 plus 5. We will skip this 15. So the reported distance or the AD is 10, that is 5 plus 5. If we talk about the RD to the X from the router 2 or from the path 2, we can say that will be 15 plus this 5, that is 20. Perfect. Similarly, for the R3, the RD is 25 plus 5, that is 30. So that's what is the difference between the visible distance and the reported distance. They are the very, deep knowledge. Most of the teacher does not teach that in the CCNA level, but still I just thought to tell you just because of the interview sake, because if interviewer is good in the EIGRP, they never forget to ask question from these one, because these are quite complicated things and most of the people don't know. So obviously interviewer always ask what you don't know or where there is a possibility to be stuck, right? That's what they want to know. Actually, they want to understand that you're understanding that how good you are. So if you go to these terminologies, there's a one very important term, that is a feasibility condition. And the highest asked in the interviews, that what is the feasibility condition. So feasibility condition is like, in order to be, obviously whenever we just calculated the FD value, we are very sure about the successor, that what is our successor. But in order to be the feasible successor or the find out the feasible successor, there is a condition to be met, and that condition is known as the feasibility condition. Why this is called a feasibility condition? Because this is going to decide our feasible successor. Means best path or the successor is always decided, there is a no problem with that one. But if in the network our the feasibility condition is does not met, the feasible successor will not exist. Or it might be the chances that either you are having the different path, you might be having three path, but if it does not meet the feasibility condition, it will not be having any feasible successor, or it will not have any alternate best path. It will be having just only one path to reach the destination. So what is that condition? The condition is like the reported value RD. This is the feasibility condition, that RD should be less than FD to be feasible successor for any of the link, right? So let us suppose the here best path is chosen, right? R1 is successor here. R1 is the successor to X. Yeah. So through the traffic is traveling through the router 1. So this is our successor, means this path is gone, right? This is not gone. In fact, this is selected. This is the best one. So now the remaining, we are having the two paths, either this or the through R3. So these two can be our alternate paths. One of these will be the alternate best path or the second number path. So that second number path can be only possible whenever the reported distance via R2, right? Reported distance via R2 is less than the feasible distance. So feasible distance is how much? Here total, that is 25 for through R2, right? That's 25. No, sorry, that is of the successor. Here I have just missed this part. Through the successor, feasible distance from of the successor. So the RD value of the link for which you are checking the value, that this can be our feasible successor or not, the reported distance of this one should be less than the feasible distance of the successor. This is our successor. So let's check that reported distance of the router 2 is how much? That is 15 plus 5, that is 20 here, right? So 20. So 20, let's check that 20, and what is the feasible distance of the successor? That is 25. It means that 20 is less than 25. It means that our this path can be our feasible successor. It means that this will be our feasible successor because it is meeting the feasibility condition. But if anyhow, let's suppose our this value is like 20, not 20. In fact, let me put it 25, right? Let's suppose this is value is 25. Let me change the color again. Let's suppose this value is 25. If this value is 25, what will be the reported distance? That will be 25 plus 5, that is 30. It means that this time this value will be 30 and this will be 25. So is that less than? No, it is not. So in that case, our the route via R2 will not be the feasible successor or the alternate best path. The same thing we are going to check for the R3, via R3, that we check it. Let's suppose it failed, right? We don't have any successor for via R2 because it is 25. And if we check about the R3, then also this is 25, 25 plus 5, that is 30, and 30 is obviously not less than 25. So it will R3 is not a feasible successor. So it might be the possibility that we are having the path like that, but still we don't have any of the feasible successor, or just all the traffic will always go through this link. So that's how it is actually. And this is very much important, that feasibility condition, that what actually feasibility condition is. Little complicated, but you should know, although it is not important in the CCNA level. But obviously, whenever you go to the interview, they are not going to ask you like, I am going to ask you the question to the CCNA level, or you want me the question for the CCNP level. They just always ask. They don't ask you the level, right? So that's why it is always good to know. And if you do not understand, just looking for the interviews, not for the certification only. So just watch this once again, and I'm sure that you will get it. Okay, guys, let's see further if we have. No, we don't have. So that's it. And now we will jump to the lab, the actual configuration in the routers. Actual configuration. I'm saying it actual configuration, but actually that is going to be in the packet tracer. And if you have any questions, right, you know what to do. Meanwhile, I'm going to the lab. Okay, guys. Here I have taken the simple lab diagram, right? So not so complicated, because it does not matter either you configure any simple routing protocol or difficult. Just you need to know that how actually you have to run the commands, right? So I have taken two routers, that router 1 and this router 2, right? And after that one, let's see that I have taken the three PCs, PC0, PC1, PC2, and PC3. Let me change it to PC4, PC3, and PC2, and PC1. I thought to save your time in the video, but it's still increasing. I have not done any of the configuration in the routers, just diagram and just labels. So let me explain you that what we are going to use. We are going to use this network 192.168.10.0 network. So here the default router is 10.100 for these all. So let me configure the PCs first, right? So I'm going to use it here 192.168.10.1. Let me copy it. Oh, it's not copying. Control C, the default router is already, if this is filled, let me put it 100. Okay, and this is done. Let me go it for the PC2 desktop, this one. Perfect. Oh, already used, that's fine, I know it. The default is 255. This is, let me put it 100. Close it. Let's go to the PC3 desktop, this one. And here PC computer number 3, subnet mask is fine, and this is 00. Perfect. Same thing, I'm going for the BC4, and here the network is 20, so I'm going to use 20.1, and the subnet mask will be the same, and the default router will be, the IP address will be the 100, but the .20 network, right? 20, yeah, and close it. So here I have 20.100. Perfect. So now let's configure the routers. Mm, mm. Here it comes. Do you want to enter the initial configuration dialog? No, I don't want to go with the initial configuration. I want to do it manually. So let me enable it and go to the configure terminal, right? So first I will go to the interface G0/0/1, and there I have to configure the IP address 10.10.12.1. You might be aware that why I'm doing this one, right? If you don't know, you may watch the previous videos, and let me put it no shut. Perfect. Let me configure the another interface G0/0/0, and yeah, and the IP address will be the default router IP, that is 192.168.10.100.255.255.255.0 and no shut. Let me go to the second router, router 2, and here also I don't want to go via the initial dialog. I want to configure it manually. Enable configure terminal. Let me see it first. Yeah, now it's visible. So there are two interfaces, G0/0. There I have to configure IP 10.10.12.2, IP address 10.10.12.2, 255.255.255.0. I'm saying it fast and type slow in typing. There's something wrong. Oh, I have not got the interface. Interface G0/0/0, and then I can run that command, and no shut as always. Perfect. So now let me configure the towards the switch. Interface G0/0/1. IP address 192.168.168.20.100. Subnet mask will be the same, 255.255.255.0, and let me put it no shut. Perfect. So right now we have not configured the EIGRP, and that is very simple actually. Just running the command router EIGRP, and here if I put the question mark, right, if you remember the other things, if you put it the router, then that's the same way to configure all the routing protocols. If you want to configure the BGP, you can put the command router BGP. If you want to configure EIGRP, you can give the command router EIGRP. If you want to configure OSPF, you give the command router OSPF. If you want to configure RAPE, you give router RAPE. So the configuration method is same. I'm going to use EIGRP, and I put the question mark. It is showing the autonomous system number. Whenever I'm configuring EIGRP, I have to give some AS number, right? So I'm giving the default AS number 100. You can give as per your company's network. If you are configuring in the real network, if you are just for the lab practice, you can configure any of them. Obviously, whenever you're going to the your network or enterprise network, you will be getting a design data from your customer, and you always do the configuration according to that. Whatever they say, you just configure. You are just putting, uh, your eyes are closed and you're just doing the things because somebody else is guiding that what you have to do. So router EIGRP 100, and now I have to advertise the network just like an OSPF or RIP if you remember. So now I'm going to give the network that which of the network I want to insert in this EIGRP. So I will insert two networks, that is this two interfaces, that is 10.10.12.2 and 10.192.168.20.100, right? So I'm going to use 10.10.12.0. Okay, and another one, 192.168, which is going towards switch, right? 20.0, or we can say the PC, and just put enter. If you remember, you don't need to give the wildcard mask, and if you want, you can give it. It's just totally on your choice. So as of now, let me give it 0.0.255, and the same thing I'm going for the 12.0. And if you do not give this wildcard mask, it will do auto summarization, and it might go to our 255.0.0.0. It means that class A network. So it's always recommended to do that one. And if you do not do, not to worry, you just have to put one extra command, and that is this. Which command you have to run? You have to put no auto summary. Just give this command. If even if you don't give that wildcard mask, you are safe. But just never forget to give this command, no auto summary. Okay. Same thing we are going to uh, give it on the router 1. So what I have to do, let me exit it first, and router EIGRP 100 and network 10.10.12.0 and another network 10 dot, no, not 10 dot, 192.168.10 dot. Oh, before that one, let me just try to ping you that without a EIGRP configuration, is my computer reachable it or not, right? So let me try to ping it first. That is really good. Let me ping 192.168.20.1, this computer, right? So obviously you might be quite good at that one, that without configuring any of the routing protocols or static routes, it is never reachable. And as usual, it is not reachable. While if you ping any of the computers in your network, that is PC2 or PC3, let's configure 10.2, obviously that will be reachable. If I put 10.2, because they're in their own network, you don't need any of the routing protocols to reach. So that is quite obvious, and that is, I think, initial lessons we took, I think session number 5, 6 or 7, I don't remember in which session I covered it, but I covered it. Okay. And so now I was doing the configuration in the router. So let me advertise the network 192.168.10.0, and I'm not giving any wildcard mask, but no, don't forget to put the command no auto summary. Okay. Once you give the command no auto summary, and okay, and now let's check the routing table. Do show IP route. So now we are having the information about the 192.168.20.0 network. If I delete that command, then earlier we were not having this information. And now I can, if you see that this is learned by what? D. D stands for the EIGRP. It means that this route has been learned via EIGRP. And what about this C? C for connected, right? Where is C? Yeah, this is C. C is connected, and L for local. So obviously local and connected. So locally means that they're just directly connected. Perfect. So now if I try to ping that 20.1, then you see that it is reachable. So that is just a basic exercise for EIGRP. Obviously, there's no end for EIGRP. There is EIGRP is a very vast protocol, and you will learn a lot more in the CCNP, or if you can explore by yourself, it's always good. And if you have any questions, don't forget to ask me right in the comment section. I will get back to you. Okay. And if not, you can reach me via which platforms. Yeah, obviously, don't forget my website. I just forgot to tell you. You can reach my website where it was. And yeah, here it is. That's the diagram. I copied it from somewhere. That is some Wikimedia Commons somewhere. Right. So what I was saying, yeah, I have a website like that, festdeveloper.online.ccna.php. So this is, I'm recording D26. So here D26 is not here. So obviously after that one I will add it, and it will come here in the D26. Perfect. So it is always good. And you can also reach me via, I think, contact section, or it is working or not. I'm not sure. Oh, it's not working. I think it's working on the home section. Let me check it if it is working. Oh, yes, it is working. Oh, we are in mission to make you achieve your goals. Nice. My mission is really good. And if you click on this CCNA, you could reach to the page where you were. And I'm not sure that you can reach that context stress form. I think it is the form, but still it is not working. I will make it functional later on. Might be that whenever you might be working, that it might be working very fine. Actually, this is the website, I am developing slowly and slowly because I'm not so good in this web page designing. So it takes some time. You still, it is the old information. I have not edited it. Yeah, this is my number. Not in fact my number. Don't forget it. Huh? Don't send unnecessary message or call. So anyways, what I was saying, uh, let me show you the important thing. So this is the I'm running the live sessions every Sunday 4 to 5 p.m. IST, and you can just click on this Google Meet link. It will redirect you the Google Meet. Okay. And another thing that if you are not in the WhatsApp group, you can just click on this WhatsApp join WhatsApp group. You can join our WhatsApp group, or you can also join our Facebook page. There's a Facebook group, not page, in fact, that is a group. So you can join our Facebook group as well, and you can messages me. You can directly message me on WhatsApp as well as in the Facebook, or you can search me on the Instagram. Let me. This is my page. I remember. Yes, this is my page. You can follow me on that one, and you can directly send message on that one. So there's three platforms you can reach me, either via WhatsApp, Facebook, or Instagram, or and there's a common method to reach our comment section. You can just write on the YouTube comment section, and I will be replying on those as well. So you have four ways to contact me if you have any questions in these sessions. Okay, so that's it for the day. Uh, See you in the next session. Till that, bye bye.